Hey guys, I'm Abby. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you are already subscribed. But today I am starting on a new quilt, and that's going to be the main part of this vlog, is doing this whole quilt. All I've done is buy the fabric and iron it, so I have to do the cutting, the sewing, all of that. I'll show you real quick which quilt I'm making and the fabrics I chose for it, and then we can get started on the actual process of making it. It'll probably take me a few days just to do it all, but I at least want to start cutting it today and hopefully start putting it together later. So this is the quilt I'm going to be making. It's the Flower Garden quilt by White Rose Designs, which is actually my sister. So my sister designed this. We're very proud of her. So I'm gonna be finally making it. I've seen many versions of it and they're all super pretty. So I'm going to be making a throw size, which is basically, you know, all this size. But what I chose for my fabrics, you can kind of see, I went with a dark color scheme, but I picked out these fabrics. This pattern is very fat quarter friendly, but I just bought yardage. But it says you need 9 fat quarters, but what she did in this like front picture, she doubled up 2 of them, which is what I'm gonna do. So I have 7 pattern pieces, which are gonna be my 9 fat quarters, and I'm just going to double up, I think, the 2 black ones. Cause see, in the like example, she has this one doubled here and here, and then the like greenish flower one doubled here and here. So I think I'm gonna double up on this one. I haven't decided if I'm gonna double up on the black 2 or like do a double of this one just to have it a little lighter. But there's enough of all these fabrics for me to, I think, double up, because a fat quarter is like half of this. Since it's yardage, I had to get just a half yard. And so there's double of all of them, and I can choose whichever one I want to actually double when I get there. But then for these like dark and light colors, and then the background I'm keeping white, which I got, and then the dark and the light, I got the black and this coral that kind of matches with the coral within these prints. So I'm really excited to see how it turns out. And then there's so much black because I'm gonna make the back black. So I have all the fabric I need for this whole quilt. I'm really kind of excited to see how it turns out. This fabric is from the Ruby Star Society. If we can, most of them's from this Florida line, but I think one of them's from a different line. I'll have to look, but I think they're all designed by Sarah Watts. Yeah, by Sarah Watts, and they're Ruby Star Society. So I've already ironed all these, and now I just have to get to cutting. Alright, so I finished all the cutting, even like the binding and such, so now I just have to start sewing pieces together. I'll show you the pieces real quick. So I kind of just nicely laid them all out. I have all the strips and little squares, but I ended up doubling this black fabric like I was going to from the beginning, because I realized I had like 4 different grays and I didn't want that much gray. So luckily I could have doubled any of them that I wanted, since I did not fat quarters like the pattern says, but a half yard. So I had plenty of extra. So we have all the pieces cut. That's like my extra, and then I have my binding and the back already. So now we can move on to like the next section, which is like sewing pieces together and then cutting them some more, and then we can start putting together the blocks. But yeah, I really like these fabrics and how they're turning out, and can't wait to put these together. So now I'm going to start sewing these 2 together. Okay, so after I ironed them, that last clip you saw, I noticed that when I went to cut them, they weren't the size that the instructions said. And I found out that's because the seam, you see I have two lines here. This first line here was the seam that I originally sewed, and it's too far in because I used the wrong footing. So I had to re-iron these flat and then sew the correct line, which is this one, on all 8 strips. So now I have to spend about 1,000 years unstitching all the wrong lines, so these squares will be the right sizes. But I was so frustrated when I found that out. I was like, I just sewed 8 strips, now I have to resew 8 strips and then unstitch 8 strips. I guess I have to get to work unstitching all of these on one of these lines. So I will see you guys after that, and then I'm gonna start cutting these and start making the blocks like the instructions said to the unstitching. It's gonna take a while. So after seems a very long time, I have all of them unstitched, the big wad of thread, and I ironed them back out, so now they are the correct size, so I can start cutting them and piecing together my blocks. And oh my gosh, I'm exhausted just from picking all that thread. But they're the right size now, so that's nice. So I have all of my strip sets done. I have my tiny little 1-inch blocks. There's 72 of these, so that took a while to cut and then sew, but they look so cute. Look at the tiny little blocks. But I'm really liking how the fabrics are turning out in these strip sets. I think it's gonna look really good, but now I can start putting the blocks together with the main pieces. So the quilt's really starting to come together. Still a bit to go, but definitely a good start. So I did finish the second strip set and I put them on the blocks. They're turning out really great. Here's some of them. But now I got like the first border on my blocks. They are turning out kind of dark, but I haven't started on adding in the background, which is white, so it will lighten up the blocks and the whole quilt in itself. But I'm really liking how they turned out. I'll show you some of the more lighter ones, because we have like the black here, and then we have like grays. Here's a white one. So this one's a lot lighter, but this one's probably my favorite so far. I really like these little oranges, and they match pretty well with the pinks. We have like that one too, the little birds. So yeah, you know, I just have to add the white background strips and then these little quarter pieces that I did earlier. But it's coming together. I mean, I would say it's about halfway done so far, but I still have a lot of strips and things over here to work on in those. So we're gonna start working on the background strips, and these blocks will get a little bigger, but turning out really great. Alright, so I have all the blocks done. They turned out a lot better than I was expecting. I'm really loving how the fabric looks. I'll show you them real quick. So here we have like some of my favorites, and I gotta hand it to myself. These corners turned out a lot better than I thought they were going to. In the past, I have not been great at lining up these corners, or any corners, but these turned out pretty well. They're not all like great, because you can see this one's off, but a lot of them turned out a lot better than I thought they would. I'm pretty sure my favorite block is still this one. I really like how this fabric turned out. This was kind of, I think, the first fabric I picked out, but I'm really excited for this to come together. I just have to lay them out now. These are all the blocks, because all that's left is like the sashing and then these corner pieces, because now I just have to lay them out what blocks I want, and then like cut some of them to make the corners and the sides, and then yeah, just sew all the pieces together, so these little strips and squares together, and then the whole top will be done. This is probably one of the most detailed quilts I've ever done. I've never done like the really small squares that I did on this one. So it took a while, and I did have to unsew a couple things, or unstitch a couple things, because I just messed up, but it really turned out pretty well considering. And I can't wait to see it kind of all together and made, and then I can send it off to my mom to be quilted. But I've been looking forward to making this quilt, because it is one that my sister designed. So I've seen it for many, many months. I will put down in the description box a link to her website so you could buy it if you want. But next month I'm working on her other quilt that she designed, and she's doing a sew along on her Instagram. You can sign up for that too if you like. That's the next quilt I'm gonna do, is her other quilt that she's designed. But yeah, for this one I just have to kind of lay it out and see how I want these blocks to go, and then sew together the whole top. Alright, so I've laid out all my pattern, and this is the layout I'm gonna go with. I moved them around and switched them up a bit to see different patterns, but I tried about 7 different ones, and this is the one we kind of chose. A tip, if you have trouble picking out or laying out something, you know, lay it out on the floor like this, and then take a picture with your phone, and especially if you need to like switch it around, take multiple pictures, and you can look at it on your phone, and you can see like things that need to be moved or that you like better on your phone. But I tried 7 different ones and sent them to like my mom and my sister, and this is the one we all liked. Now I just have to work on cutting these pieces that are going to go on the corners. Of course this will look a little different because there's sashing in between these blocks, but I don't have that much room on the floor to lay it all out. So, and I was just kind of trying to get the feel of the whole quilt here. But yeah, now I just have to cut these pieces and the corner piece into 4 and start sewing it all together. So excited to see this finished. So a little hack that my sister taught me, since we're cutting these in half and we don't want them to like stretch or anything, we're going to set down our pieces that we're going to cut, and we're actually going to first mark them with a pencil. And I have my 2 colored pencils since I have dark and light fabric, but you're going to mark it where you're going to cut it. And then once we have the line, I'm going to take this through my sewing machine and sew 2 lines. So on either side they're going to be 1/8 of an inch from the line, and then we're going to cut it, and that will just help stabilize the block after it's cut, so it doesn't like stretch or anything, especially because we're going through like seams and all that. So I'm just going to finish marking all of these and then sew 1/8 of an inch on either side, and then I will actually cut them, but they'll be nice and solid like the rest of my blocks. Alright, so I have drawn my lines and then stitched on either side. As long as you have this under, you know, 1/4 inch, it won't show because these are going to be on the edge. And so your binding will cover them. Your binding will cover them so they won't show up. But now I just have to cut on that line I drew, and it will have stabilization on either side. And then for the corner pieces we're cutting for, I just did both ways. So now I just have to cut these. Alright, so I have all my cut pieces put into the layout. You can really get a feel of the quilt. Of course, I still had to add in the sashing and the markings. And the middles yeah, this is basically what the quilt's gonna look like. Just a little more white in there, but I'm really loving how it's looking. So now I just have to do a ton of sewing and ironing just to put together this whole top. Really, you can see that the lines will keep it steady and will be covered when the binding is put on, because these are on the edges and the corners. Now to just finish this quilt out. So there is the top. It's all sewn together. All the stripping is in. All I have to do left is cut off these little triangles and then add in the last border, which is just a black strip. And yeah, and then I just have to do my binding, and then I can send it off to my mom and get it quilted. I really loved how it turned out. It turned out a lot lighter than I was expecting, but I like it. That's not a bad thing. I was worried with all these really dark blocks, but it looks super good. So yeah, I just have, that's extra, but I have just this black border to put on at the end. You can see they have like a border around the quilt, but just add that and my throw size quilt will be done. And if you're wondering, if you don't remember, I did do the pink for the binding, and then I have a black for the backing. But yeah, that is my flower garden quilt, and it's by White Rose Designs. I put the link in the description box. It is a quilt that my sister designed, and this is the fabric I chose to do it in. Really loved how it turned out. But I'm gonna end the vlog here, because all I have to do is that little border, and it'll be done. But you can check out my Instagram, and I'll post like a completed picture there, especially when my mom gets done quilting it and gives it back to me. I will post more about what she quilted it with. But I hope you guys like this video. This is the most detailed quilt I've done, and it's the first quilt I did on point, which just means it's turned and not, you know, square. And I really enjoyed doing it, and it turned out a lot better than I was expecting, like lining up corners and everything. So really kind of growing more confidence in my sewing abilities. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye guys.